Welcome back to the deep dive. It is genuinely good to have you here with us.
It's good to be back.
We have been on quite a specific trajectory over the last few conversations, haven't we? It feels like we're pulling on a single thread that's starting to unravel a very large, very comfortable sweater.
That is a very polite way of saying we're systematically dismantling the operating system of modern society.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I think that's fair.
I mean, it really does feel like we're peeling back layers, and every single layer reveals a new glitch, a new error in the code that we've just accepted as normal because we've never really looked at it this closely before.
We live inside the software. It's hard to see the bugs when it's the only reality you know.
Exactly. And just to set the table for everyone tuning in, because I think the context really, really matters today, we started this whole arc by looking at the structural pension crisis.
That was a heavy one.
It was. And the big takeaway, for me at least, was realizing that the economic system views human beings as cost factors, as liabilities on a balance sheet, rather than the actual point of the whole exercise.
Right. We mistook the protocol, the money, for the reality, which is care and human life.
We confuse the map for the territory. That's the phrase that keeps coming back.
It is the fundamental error. We keep finding it everywhere we look.
And that led us directly into our last deep dive on double alienation. We explored how our economy is, structurally blind to nature. It's a sort of systemic narcissism.
Yes, and not just blind, but also cold to animals. It has to actively suppress our biological empathy just to keep the industrial machine running smoothly.
It's a pattern, isn't it? The economic operating system, it just can't read biological or physical reality accurately. It filters everything out that doesn't come with a price tag.
It doesn't see a forest. It sees lumber futures. It doesn't see a pig. It sees a protein unit.
It's this persistent, systemic pattern of blindness. And today we're bringing that same cybernetic lens, that specific way of looking at systems, feedback loops, information, and we are pointing it at something that is probably sitting in the driveway of half the people listening.
Or, more likely, they're sitting inside of it right now.
Stuck in traffic, maybe.
Possibly stuck in traffic, listening to us talk about why they're stuck in traffic.
Exactly. Today, we're talking about the car, the private automobile, but I want to be really clear right off the bat. This is not the usual cars are bad for the environment conversation.
Yeah.
We're not doing the standard you should feel guilty about your carbon footprint talk. That's been done.
To death. And it's not the point. We're going much, much deeper. We're looking at what our source material calls automobile hysteria.
Okay.
And I want to state the central thesis right from the jump because it's startling. The argument is this. The modern private car is not a tool of freedom, despite what every single Super Bowl commercial for the last 50 years has told you.
Okay, not a tool of freedom. What is it then?
It is what systems theorists call a dissipative structure.
A dissipative structure. That sounds like something that's about to fall apart. It sounds unstable.
In a way, it is. It means it's a structure that has to consume immense amounts of energy just to maintain its shape, just to exist. It constantly generates entropy or waste.
So it's fighting against collapse at all times.
Constantly. It's a massive system error. Our source describes it, and I absolutely love this phrasing, as a military-industrial zombie.
A military-industrial zombie?
Yes, a zombie kept alive by a glitch in our economic software.
Okay, hold on. I love a good metaphor, but that is a bold claim. You're telling me the Toyota Camry I used to get groceries is a zombie?
In a cybernetic sense, absolutely. It's dead technology walking. It only survives because we have organized our entire reality to feed it. Yeah. We feed it energy, space, time, and money.
And you're saying we do this because of automobile hysteria and economic inefficiency?
Those are the two concepts we need to unpack today. And we're going to do it using the physics of information and energy, not just opinions or feelings about cars.
I'm ready. But let's start with that first term you threw out, hysteria. In normal conversation, that means, panicking or being irrational, mass hysteria. But in cybernetics, it has a very specific technical meaning, doesn't it?
It does. It's related to the term hysteresis. It's a concept from physics and systems theory. And broadly speaking, it refers to the dependence of a system state on its history.
Okay, let's unpack this. Give me the non-textbook version, because when I hear dependence on history, I just think of, tradition or habit.
Think of it as system inertia, or even better, system memory.
System memory. Okay.
In a perfect, rational, agile system, the output reacts to the current input. If I'm cold right now, I put on a sweater. The action matches the immediate need. Simple cause and effect.
Makes sense.
Hysteresis is when a system reacts not to what's happening now, but to its stored model of the past. Its memory overrides the present reality.
So it's like muscle memory, or doing something just because that's how we've always done it.
Precisely. It's the system's embedded memory overriding current, real-time data. Imagine a thermostat that's broken. The room is already boiling hot, but the heater keeps blasting because the sensor has a huge lag, and it still thinks it's an hour ago when the room was cold.
So the system is acting on old information.
It's acting on its memory of what was, not its perception of what is. And this right here is the key to understanding why our cities look the way they do. We have this default assumption that we drive cars because we, as individuals, naturally desire personal mobility.
Sure. I want to go from point A to point B, so I buy a machine that does that. It seems like a logical bottom-up choice based on my own desire to move around.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
But the historical analysis in our source material suggests something radically different. The root of modern car culture isn't this organic desire for freedom, it's war.
War. Okay, you're going to have to connect those dots for me. How does my minivan relate to a war zone?
We have to go back in time to 1945. Think about the industrial capacity of the world, especially the United States, during World War II. What were we building?
We were building, well, tanks, planes, ships, the arsenal of democracy.
Exactly. We built massive, colossal factories to produce internal combustion engines, rubber tires, steel chassis, and the logistical chains for fuel. We needed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of tanks, jeeps, trucks, all to move armies across entire continents.
Right. The war effort required a total mobilization of industry. Everything was geared toward heavy metal moving on oil.
A perfect description. But then the war ended, 1945 comes along, peace is declared, and suddenly you have this gargantuan industrial complex, all these machines, these supply chains, millions of specialized workers, and they are all geared up to build heavy, motorized steel boxes. But the demand for tanks just dropped to near zero overnight.
So you have a supply shock, or I guess a demand shock. You have all this capacity and suddenly no customer.
A massive one. Now, a healthy biological system, like a forest after a fire, it might just shrink back down to a balanced state. If there's no food, the predator population drops. But an industrial financial system, it wants to survive. It wants to maintain its structure. It has kind of self-preservation instinct.
Which you call autopoiesis, self-creation, self-preservation.
Exactly. The system looks at all these factories, all this capital, and it says, I don't want to die. The political and financial pressure to keep those factories running, to keep those people employed, was immense.
So the system has to find a new way to feed itself. It can't just close up shop and send everyone home.
Correct. So to save itself, the industrial complex performed a brilliant act of rebranding. It recoded the military hardware.
Recoded?
It took the object tank or jeep, smoothed out the corners, painted it a nice friendly color, and rebranded it as the Volkswagen, the people's car, or the family sedan. It took the object deployment route, which was designed for moving troops rapidly to the front line, and it rebranded it as the highway or the Autobahn.
Wow. So you're saying the family sedan is essentially a demilitarized tank that needed a new reason to exist.
That is the zombie aspect. The industrial capacity was the walking dead of the war machine, and to keep it walking, we had to invent a civilian use for it on a mass scale. And here is the really deep insight from our sources. We didn't rebuild our cities around cars because it was the most efficient way to move people.
Well, because
We reshaped our entire physical world to create a sink for the excess industrial capacity from the war.
a sink, that implies we're dumping something, like a heat sink or a landfill, but for cars.
For dumping product. You have to understand, in 1940, most American and European cities were dense, they were walkable, they were connected by trams and subways. You didn't need a car. To sell millions of them, you had to first invent the need.
And how do you do that?
You have to break the city apart through what our source calls structural coercion.
Structural coercion. That's a heavy phrase. What does it mean in practice?
It means the environment forces your hand. If you, through zoning laws and federal subsidies for highways, spread everything out, if you separate the house from the grocery store by 5 miles of asphalt, and the school from the house by another 5, and the office by 10, you force people to need a machine to bridge those gaps.
You create a dependency.
You build a habitat that requires the consumption of the industry's product. That is hysteresis in its purest form. We are living inside a physical layout that is dictated by the production needs of 1945, not the human needs of the 2020s. The system is still reacting to the memory of the war effort.
That puts a whole new spin on the morning commute. I'm not just driving to work. I'm participating in a historical reenactment of a war economy that just forgot to turn itself off.
You are servicing a legacy system. You are the energy source, the operator, keeping the zombie moving. And that brings us to the second massive problem. Because even if we strip away the history, let's say we ignore the war origins and just look at the car today as it is on its own terms, let's look at the physics, the physio-economics.
Physio-economics. We touched on this in our philosophy deep dive, the idea that the laws of thermodynamics are the real rules of the game, and money is just a made-up scoring system on top.
Exactly. The market can lie, physics cannot. The market can say this giant SUV is efficient because it sells well and gets decent mileage for its size. Physics just asks, what is the absolute energy cost to move the mass?
And when we look at the car through that thermodynamic lens,
we run straight into what the analysis calls the mass paradox.
I like the sound of that. It sounds like a sci-fi thriller. What is the mass paradox?
It's a very simple ratio question. What is the actual task we are trying to perform with a car? What are we trying to move?
We're trying to move a human being, a person.
Right. Let's say, just for the sake of easy math, a system body weighing about 80 kilograms. That's the payload, the important cargo.
Okay, 80-kilogram payload, that's me.
To move that 80-kilogram payload from your house to your office, our current system requires us to first wrap it in a steel, glass, plastic, and rubber box, the car itself, that weighs anywhere from 1,500 kilograms to, with modern electric SUVs, upwards of 2,500 kilograms.
When you put the numbers next to each other like that, it seems wildly disproportionate.
It's an efficiency ratio of roughly 1 to 25, sometimes 1 to 30. For every single kilogram of human you want to move, you are forced to move 25 or 30 kilograms of dead weight.
That's like if I wanted to carry a backpack across town, but to do so, the law required me to first carry a refrigerator strapped to my chest.
It's worse. It's like wearing a full suit of medieval armor made of solid lead just to walk to the mailbox.
From a purely physical thermodynamic perspective, the car is a machine that primarily moves itself.
The human is just the excuse.
The human is the operator, a little organic blip just tagging along inside this massive steel object that's being moved around. The vast majority of the energy is spent on the machine, not the payload. But wait a second. Modern cars are so much more efficient. They're aerodynamic. The engines are finely tuned. Surely that offsets the weight issue.
It helps, but it doesn't solve the fundamental physics of stop and go, which is what defines most driving. Immense amounts of energy are required to accelerate mass. It's just FMA.
Force equals mass times acceleration.
Right. Think about the physics of city driving. You're at a standstill, you press the accelerator, you burn a significant amount of fuel or electricity to get 2,000 kilograms of metal moving up to 50 kilometers per hour. That takes a lot of energy. Then what happens 200 meters later?
You hit a red light, or stop sign, or traffic.
And you brake. What is braking?
Slowing down.
Physically, it's the conversion of kinetic energy, the energy of motion into heat. You take all that precious chemical energy you just burned to create motion, and you dump it uselessly into the atmosphere as waste heat from your brake pads and rotors.
And then you do it all over again at the next block.
And again, and again. It is a massive, purpose-built generator of entropy.
Of waste and disorder. So when you compare that to, what, a bicycle?
Let's do the comparison. A bicycle. The machine weighs maybe 15 kilograms. The payload is 80 kilograms. The machine is a tiny fraction of the payload's weight. The energy input is food, and it's incredibly efficient.
Or a train.
A train, yes. The train is incredibly heavy, but the rolling resistance of steel wheels on steel rails is almost negligible compared to rubber on asphalt. And you're distributing that mass over hundreds of people. The energy cost per capita to move a person 1 kilometer by train is a tiny fraction of what it is by car.
So the private car is really this unique outlier in its physical absurdity.
It's like using a jackhammer to hang a picture frame.
Yeah.
You can do it, it'll get the nail on the wall, but the energy you're expending is completely, utterly disproportionate to the task. And the mess you make, the noise, the pollution, the danger is significant.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here. I hear the physics argument. It makes perfect logical sense. But if this is so physically stupid, if the engineering makes no sense on a whiteboard, why does our economy love it so much? Why is the auto industry always held up as the gold standard of economic health? GM had a good quarter, so America's doing well. It's treated as a barometer for everything.
This is where we get to the economic hallucination. This brings us right back to that core error. The map versus territory problem we saw with nature. The economy uses money, and specifically GDP, gross domestic product, as its map of reality. But the map is profoundly flawed.
How so? Isn't GDP just a measure of how much stuff we make and how many services we provide, a measure of activity?
It measures flow, it measures the velocity of transactions. It does not and cannot measure the state or well-being of the system. It has no variable for health or efficiency in the physical sense. In fact, GDP loves inefficiency.
That sounds completely counterintuitive. I thought capitalism was all about maximizing efficiency to maximize profit.
It's about maximizing monetary profit. And those are two very different things. Let's use the classic broken window logic. Imagine a car sitting in rush hour traffic. It's not really going anywhere. It's burning gasoline. The engine parts are wearing out. The tires are degrading. The driver's getting stressed. Maybe their blood pressure is rising.
Sounds like a typical Tuesday afternoon for most commuters. A miserable experience.
A miserable experience for the human. But for the GDP, this is fantastic. It's wonderful.
How is that wonderful?
You're burning fuel. That's a transaction at the gas station. You're wearing out the car's parts. That means you'll need repairs or a new car sooner. That's future transactions at the mechanic at the dealership. You get a stress headache and buy aspirin. That's a transaction at the pharmacy.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. The misery is monetized. The friction is the product.
Now let's go a step darker. Imagine a terrible accident happens on that highway. Two cars collide.
That's a tragedy. People could be hurt or killed.
A tragedy for the territory, for the real people involved. But for the map, for the GDP, it's a boom, an economic stimulus package.
How can an accident be a stimulus?
Think of the transactions. Ambulances are dispatched, police file reports, tow trucks are called, mechanics get work, lawyers are hired, insurance adjusters get paid, hospital bills run into the tens of thousands, physical therapy, maybe a new, modified home. That one tragic event generates a massive cascade of financial activity. On the national spreadsheet, it looks like growth.
So destruction is registered as creation.
Precisely. Now, contrast that with the cyclist. She rides her bike to work. She burns zero fuel. She causes virtually zero wear and tear on the road surface. She gets physical exercise, so she's healthier and doesn't need to see the doctor as often. She arrives at work feeling energized.
Sounds great for her and for society as a whole. Lower healthcare costs, no pollution.
But for the GDP, she's a disaster. She's a ghost. The cyclist is GDP neutral. She is utterly useless to the ideology of perpetual growth because she isn't actively destroying anything that needs to be replaced, and she isn't burning finite resources that need to be purchased over and over again.
That is just, it's twisted. You're saying a healthy, efficient, non-destructive person is bad for the economy.
For this specific flawed economic operating system, yes, it's the simulation error. The economic simulation interprets system friction, wear, tear, waste, stress, accidents, destruction as value creation. We are literally rewarding the destruction of structure because that destruction generates cash flow. We are burning the furniture to heat the house and calling the light it produces progress.
So the economy is hallucinating. It thinks we're getting richer when in physical thermodynamic reality, we're just churning up resources and creating waste and disorder.
Precisely. And this leads us to the next, maybe most important layer of the onion. If the physics are bad, and the economics are a lie, why do we, the actual humans inside the machine, participate? Why does driving so often feel good? Why do so many of us love our cars?
Yeah, that's the big question. Because we do. I can't deny it. Getting into a nice car, closing the door, that silence, it feels like a personal sanctuary. It feels like freedom. I can go anywhere I want. It feels powerful. I don't feel like a zombie operator. I feel like the captain of my own ship.
That feeling is absolutely real. The system is very good at producing that feeling, but the source of it, according to this analysis, is misunderstood. This is what our source calls the prosthesis illusion.
A prosthesis? You mean like an artificial limb?
Exactly like an artificial limb. Think about what a car actually does for your physical body. It removes physical exertion. It manages your qualia, your subjective sensory experience of the world.
How so?
When you walk or cycle, you feel reality. You feel gravity pulling on you as you go up a hill. You feel the wind in your face. You sweat when it's hot. Your muscles burn. You get direct, unmediated input from the real world.
Right. Reality pushes back. It takes effort. It's work.
The car creates a sensation of negative freedom. It gives you freedom from effort, freedom from reality. You press a pedal with your toe, a tiny, almost meaningless muscular contraction, and 2,000 kilograms of steel surges forward at 100 kilometers per hour. It feels like you did that. Your will was made manifest effortlessly.
It makes me feel stronger than I am. It's an amplifier for my will.
It acts as a powerful exoskeleton. It provides the positive feedback loop of a superhero. I think, therefore the world moves. But this feeling relies on what you could call a freedom virus, a mimetic link that the industry forged very, very carefully over decades of marketing.
The meme of freedom.
Yes, they successfully and brilliantly link the concept of autonomy, a core human cybernetic need for self-governance, with the act of car ownership.
The open road, go your own way. It's not just a car, it's a journey. All those slogans.
Every single one. But let's apply a quick reality check. When you are in your car, are you actually autonomous?
Well, I mean, I decide where to go. Left turn, right turn. That's me.
Is it? You are physically confined to a predefined strip of asphalt. You cannot leave it. You are bound by a complex web of traffic laws. You are completely dependent on a global network of gas stations or charging infrastructure. You are mandated by law to purchase insurance. You must pay registration fees and taxes to the state.
Okay, when you list it all out.
You get stuck in traffic jams created by the collective system, rendering you completely immobile, sometimes for hours. You have to constantly hunt for a legal, often expensive place to store the machine when you're not using it.
So, put that way, it sounds less like freedom and more like a very expensive and complicated administrative burden. I'm not a captain. I'm an administrator of a piece of heavy machinery.
You are not an autonomous agent. You are a dependent operator of a constraint system. You are a node in a flow diagram that you do not control.
It's the illusion of control. We buy the feeling of autonomy, but we receive the reality of dependency.
And we also buy the illusion of speed. This is where the analysis gets really interesting. The source references Ivan Illich, who was a brilliant social critic back in the 70s. He proposed a way to calculate the true speed of a car. He called it social speed.
Social speed, how is that different from just, looking at the speedometer?
We usually think about speed in terms of chronos, simple linear clock time. I drove 10 kilometers in 10 minutes, so I was going 60 kilometers per hour. That's fast.
Right, that's the math. That's what seems to matter when I'm late for a meeting.
But Illich argued that's only half the equation. It's a dishonest calculation. To get the true speed, you have to include all the time you spent working to pay for the car in the first place.
Oh, I see where this is going.
You have to sum up all the hours of your life you traded for the money to make the purchase, to pay the interest on the loan, to cover the insurance, the fuel, the maintenance, the repairs, the parking tickets, the depreciation. All of that is time deducted from your finite life, invested for the sake of the car.
Okay, let's just try to do some really rough back-of-a-napkin math here. If a person makes, say, $25 an hour after tax, and their total cost of car ownership for the year is, what, $10,000? That seems plausible.
It is. So $10,000 divided by $25 an hour.
That's 400 hours of work.
400 hours of your life. That's 10 full 40-hour work weeks. That's 2.5 months of your working life every single year just to own the key.
Ouch, that's a huge chunk of time before I've even driven anywhere.
Now add the time you actually spend sitting in the car driving, let's say an hour and a half a day, 5 days a week. That's another, 350, 400 hours a year?
So you're at 800 hours total invested time.
At least. Now divide the total distance you drove that year by that 800 hours.
So if I drove, say, 12,000 kilometers in a year, 12,000 divided by 800.
When Illich and other researchers have done this math on the average American car owner, do you know what the effective social speed comes out to?
I'm almost afraid to guess. It's not going to be fast, is it?
It's roughly 6 kilometers per hour.
6 kilometers per hour. That's walking speed.
That's a brisk walk, maybe a slow jog.
That is a devastating calculation. You are telling me that I am working my tail off for months on end to buy and maintain a complex machine that, in net lifetime terms, moves me around at the same speed as if I just walked.
Financially and temporally speaking, yes.
Yeah.
This is the time deception. We trade kairos, which is meaningful, live time, time we can spend with our families or learning an instrument or just sleeping. We trade that for a simulation of chronos, a big number in the dashboard.
It's a bad trade. It's a terrible exchange rate. We work hundreds of hours to buy a machine that saves us 10 minutes on the commute, but which costs us those hundreds of hours to acquire in the first place.
And it's not just eating our time, it's eating our space. That was the next major point in our investigation. The source calls it the colonization of the social field.
That sounds ominous. The social field. What is that?
Think of it as the space where society actually happens, the intersubjective space. In a city, this is the street, the square, the plaza, the park. It's the modern equivalent of the Greek agora. where democracy was born.
The places where you meet people you don't already know, where kids play, where public life happens.
Exactly. Now let's look at the simple metric of a parked car. The average private car is parked. It is unused for about 23 hours a day. 95% of its life is spent in storage.
It's mostly just a piece of furniture. It sits there while I sleep, while I work, while I eat dinner.
And while it sits there, it consumes about 12 square meters of prime real estate.
12 square meters. That's the size of a small bedroom. Or a decent home office.
Now imagine this. Imagine you went outside and built a 12 square meter shed in the middle of your street. You put a lock on the door and painted my private property on the side. What would happen?
People would be outraged. They'd say, you can't do that. You're blocking the public space. You're stealing the commons. The police would be there, have it towed within an hour.
Of course. But because the 12 square meter box has wheels, and because of the hysteresis and cultural blindness we've been talking about, we accept it as normal. In our cities, massive, colossal amounts of the commons, the public land that belongs to everyone, have been privatized for the exclusive storage of private machinery.
And that's just the space for storage. It's not even counting the space for movement.
No, that's where it gets worse. The city stops being a habitat for humans, a place for what our source calls social work, for meeting and living and playing. And it becomes a machine for traffic flow. It becomes a flow diagram. And in a flow diagram that is optimized for cars, what are humans?
They're interference. They're obstacles.
Jaywalkers, speed bumps, annoyances.
You hear it all the time. We yell at kids to get out of the street. Car coming. But why? The street used to be their space. For generations, the street was the default playground. Now we treat it as a death zone reserved exclusively for the passage of machines.
We have colonized the social field with dead hardware.
It really connects all the way back to the double alienation we discussed. It's the same pattern. The economy is blind to nature, cold to animals. And now we see it's also delusional about space and physics and time.
This is the synthesis. You asked at the beginning how this fits into the larger arc.
Yeah.
This is the answer. Is one single pattern of blindness manifesting in different domains.
Okay, lay it out for me.
Just as the economic operating system is blind to the forest, it can only see the lumber, not the complex living ecosystem.
Right.
And just as it's cold to the animal, it can only see the meat, not the sentient creature whose life is being taken.
It suppresses resonance.
It does. In the exact same way, it is delusional about the car. It can only see the GDP growth. It is blind to the thermodynamic waste. It is blind to the stolen time calculated by Illich, and it is blind to the destruction of the social commons. It's the same glitch, the same error, repeating itself over and over.
It's a pathological loop.
It is. We are trapped in a cycle where we destroy our own substratum, our nature, our animals, our urban space, our time, in order to feed a simulation. We feed the GDP spreadsheet, we feed the legacy industrial complex, and the simulation gives us false feedback.
It tells us we're growing and we're free.
While in physical and social reality, we're becoming poorer and more constrained, we are literally eating the real world to feed the digital map.
That is the very definition of a dissipative structure in a crisis state, isn't it? It requires more and more energy input from the real world just to keep the unstable, wasteful structure from collapsing. So what does this all mean for the listener, I have to ask? Because this is incredibly heavy stuff. And practically speaking, most people can't just sell their car tomorrow. Our cities are built this way now. The hysteresis is real. I still have to get to work. My kids still have to get to school.
No, absolutely not. We cannot simply wish away 70 years of urban planning and industrial path dependence. We are stuck inside the maze for the time being.
Yeah.
But the first step of any cybernetic correction is to update the map. You have to see the system clearly first.
So when I walk out to my car tomorrow morning,
don't look at it as a freedom machine. Don't buy the story that commercials are selling you. Look at it and recognize it for what it is based on this analysis. A 2-ton tank from a forgotten war that is systematically eating your time and your space.
That is a heavy image, but it does break the spell. It kind of shatters the romance of it all.
It's meant to. A truly sane economy, a physio-economic approach, would ask a very simple, honest question before doing anything. It would ask, how do I move this mass M from point A to point B with the minimum possible change in energy?
With minimal delta E.
If we ask that question honestly, if we let physics and thermodynamics rule our decision-making instead of the zombie industrial complex from 1945, the private car, as a primary mode of transport in cities, would vanish overnight.
We would look at it as a ridiculous, obsolete relic.
We would look at it the way we look at someone keeping a giant coal-fired steam engine in their living room just to power their toaster. It's a magnificent piece of engineering, but it is a profoundly stupid solution to the actual problem.
That is a powerful, provocative thought to leave us with. We're all driving around in these high-tech steam engines thinking we're in Star Trek.
The future isn't a faster, bigger, maybe electric version of the same mistake. The future is waking up from the hysteria and asking a better question.
Well, on that note, I think I might just walk home today. Or at the very least, I'll be looking at my dashboard with a very, very different perspective.
Just remember who you are in the system. You are the operator, not the machine. You have the autonomy, not it.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. Until the next time, keep questioning the map.
And take care of the territory.